What do you think of when you hear Grand Theft Auto? Violent? Open world? Controversial? Probably all three, and then some. Ever since the first game's release in 1997, it was on the receiving end of moral outrage thanks to its unapologetically violent nature. Of course, this outrage was also what made it as successful as it was, and gamers loved the freedom and non-linearity of the game's virtual world, as well as the ability to inflict chaos upon virtual people, with the game selling over 1 million copies. It seems for Rockstar, there's no such thing as bad publicity. After leaving such a significant impression in gaming, where do you go from there? Well, given how the PlayStation 2 opened up more technological opportunities than ever before for video games, you give players everything they loved about the previous games, including the near-limitless freedom and unrestricted violence. But in 3D. And it's not just the graphics that made the jump to 3D. Everything about the development of Grand Theft Auto 3 was made with creating a living, breathing world in mind. There's a day and night cycle as the in-game hours tick by, and dynamic weather that ranges from sunny to rainy and to foggy. You might even catch a rainbow. The story is filled with memorable characters with solid voice acting.
Make sure he doesn't reach his club alive. Meanwhile, Maria and I will catch up on old times.
Oh, Asuka, you've got a massager.
That's not a massager.
And NPCs react accordingly to what happens around them. For example, civilians will run at the sound of gunfire, while gang members aren't afraid to shoot back. Additionally, while there isn't as much NPC dialogue as there is in later games, there are still very amusing quotes.
My mother's my sister. My money, my problems.
I'm an old lady, for Christ's sake!
And of course, the city itself is highly detailed, and the game encourages exploration with hidden pickups and a myriad of side missions scattered throughout the map. There are also countless other small details that make the world feel more realistic, such as vehicles uniquely deteriorating as they're damaged, and footprints being left behind when someone steps in blood. While none of this may seem particularly noteworthy today, it was an enormous step forward for the series, and for gaming in general. Even I was impressed with the level of detail put into the game as I recorded footage. And this immense attention to detail would not only be prevalent throughout future Rockstar games, but also other open-world sandbox games to come. But of course, there's more to the game than exploring the city and causing chaos. The protagonist is a man named Claude, who is betrayed and left for dead by his lover and partner in crime, Catalina.
Sorry, babe. I'm an ambitious girl. You're just small time.
He survives, however, and is now out for revenge. And from then on, you're more or less the errand boy of several prominent gang members throughout the city. You perform various tasks, kill some people, start a few gang wars, just typical criminal work. Eventually, you'll unlock all 3 islands of Liberty City. And as you'll see as you play the game, many of the missions are open-ended. While it might point you in a certain direction, they won't always give you step-by-step instructions on how to complete it. For example, while you could easily shoot the target you're assigned to kill and jump headfirst into a gunfight, you could just as easily run them over with your vehicle. Of course, given the nature of the game, anything can happen, so choose wisely, because you'll be in for quite a challenge. As you drive throughout the city, you can listen to music on one of the in-game radio stations. This isn't anything new, as the previous games also had radio stations to listen to during gameplay. But what was new was a radio talk show station that played no music. Chatterbox FM was hosted by Laszlo, voiced by Laszlo Jones, who interviewed a plethora of eccentric guests on his show. What followed was an hour's worth of the raunchy, dark, cynical, and satirical humor that would become a signature part of Grand Theft Auto's identity.
All right, hello, next caller. You're on Chatterbox.
I want to talk about that spank stuff. People say it's bad for you. It's not bad for you at all. Why aren't you talking? Oh, you think I'm strange? Am I on the air? Hello? Answer me, you pansy.
What's your question?
Spank! 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 Spank!
What about it? I mean, that's not really a question. Questions usually start with words like how and why, and they end with your voice going up like this.
Don't mock me. I know where you work. You're just like all the rest.
How's that?
Fluoride is evil, dude. And toothpaste, they use it to control us. Why do you think all the commercials tell you to brush it twice a day? I've read books.
And what book have you been reading that tells you that toothpaste is evil?
Dentures, the Devil, and the Great Cavity Cover-Up by J. Phil Higginbottom. If you'd seen what I've seen, and if you've heard what I've heard, you'd never brush your teeth again.
I suppose you're one of those people that says that diet soda makes you go crazy later in life.
I told you before, man. Don't mock me. My taxes pay your salary, you pansy.
Yes, sir, this is a commercial radio station owned by Love Media. Advertising revenue pays my salary.
Since then, despite not making any physical appearances in-game until Grand Theft Auto 5, Laszlo would become a fan-favorite character of the series, entertaining millions of players.
You're so original, like a basket full of puppies or a rainbow or a pile of puke.
But with all this new ground broken came a whole new wave of controversy.
Grand Theft Auto 3, one of the most popular, technically sophisticated, and graphic video games ever designed, may have given our generation of adults something new to worry about. Since it was released 9 months ago, Grand Theft Auto 3 has sold 3.5 million copies at $50 per. It carries a rating of M for mature audience, indicating that its content is unsuitable for persons under 17. But that, of course, has only made it more tantalizing to teens under that age. And hundreds of thousands of them have apparently had no trouble finding an adult to purchase the game for them. What does it do? Well, it puts the player in the assumed role of an escaped convict trying to work his way up the ladder in the world of organized crime and gang warfare. It is, as Michel Norris now reports, just the sort of game you'd like your 13-year-old to get his hands on.
The violence in this game is much more graphic than its predecessors, including dismemberment and beheadings in a gloriously bloody fashion. It's admittingly kind of goofy and cartoonish looking by today's standards, but certainly caused a stir when it was released. And I can't neglect to mention the fact that not only can you pick up hookers and have sex with them, but you can also kill them immediately afterwards to get your money back. Add in accusations of glorifying violent crime, and you've got one of the most controversial video games in history. While Grand Theft Auto 3 may not have been the first video game to attract controversy because of its graphic content, it did more than its fair share of fanning the flames. Even today, with games being more graphic than ever before, debates continue on about how much video games contribute to real-life violence. Which begs the question, why do so many people enjoy violent video games like Grand Theft Auto? The most significant reason is because it gives us a safe rush of adrenaline. Most people wouldn't enjoy the adrenaline of getting into an actual impromptu fight, but video games allow people to enjoy the tensions of life and death situations without actually being in any danger. There's also the fact that violence almost always has a way of attracting attention, and fictional violence is no different. It's also likely why kids seem to be attracted to these kinds of games. They see the extreme violence that comes with the M rating on the box, and think that violent games are grown up and cool. So does this lead to negative behavior in real life? I have my own thoughts on the issue. While there are some studies that suggest people, especially children, who play violent video games show more signs of aggression than those that don't, I definitely don't think it's as simple as playing violent video games inherently makes you a more mentally unstable person. There are many other environmental factors that shape a person's disposition, particularly how they're raised by their parents or guardians. Someone's behavior could be influenced by playing video games, but there are so many more factors that contribute to a person's personality, and blaming video games alone is, in my opinion, a very narrow way of looking at the issue. As for how I think the issue should be handled, I believe communication is the best course of action, such as asking kids why they enjoy those kinds of games, and teaching them from a young age that they shouldn't always imitate what they see in fiction. I also believe adults should use their discretion as to whether or not their child is mature enough to play certain games. And if a kid grows up to be a well-adjusted adult of sound mind, it's very unlikely that they'll become a violent and aggressive person just because of the games they play. Of course, this won't be the last time Rockstar came under scrutiny. In fact, I don't think it's much of a stretch to call them one of the most controversial game developers in history. Nonetheless, Grand Theft Auto continues to be one of their most successful series and shows no signs of stopping anytime soon. Grand Theft Auto 3 might not be as polished as later entries, and may even seem a bit lacking. However, its influence in gaming cannot be ignored, and even if you don't personally care for the game or the series, you'd be hard-pressed to deny that it's earned its place in video game history. As for me, I very much enjoyed my experience with the game, and whether you're an old fan or a newcomer, you just might too. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to click like, and subscribe if you want to see more.